So over 1.5 million scams are reported every year in the UK, with victims losing more than £1.2 billion annually. Every single day, thousands of people fall victim to scams because, quite simply, they aren't aware of how to tell the difference. They aren't aware of the key signs that give away all scammers. Now, scams are massively on the rise. 8,700 are reported to the Financial Ombudsman in just the last 3 months. There has never been a more important time to learn the knowledge that I'm about to give you to protect not only yourself, but your loved ones, your elders, especially those more vulnerable. I took a personal interest in making sure I learned this stuff after my grandparents were conned out of thousands of pounds from a phishing email, and believe me, it could have been a lot more. Right, so let's get straight to the important information. In part one of this video, I'm going to explain to you what scams are on the rise and why it's so difficult to spot them now. And in part two, then I'll cover the most common signs and signals that can indicate a scam and reveal the 7 questions you can use to identify any scam. In part 3, I'm going to give you examples of the most common types of scam occurring right now and what specifically to look out for on each, such as online scams and telephone scams and even in-person scams such as romance scams, which we see a lot of now on TV, don't we? Timestamps are down below so you can navigate the video as you see fit. My name is Cal, your personal pocket-sized lawyer. As always, guys, I'm here to educate people on their basic legal rights, which no one else it seems to be doing right now. I won't ask you to subscribe to the channel until you have given me at least a chance to earn it from you with the content I produce. So if at the end of the video you feel like you've learned anything of value, please feel free to do so. So as technology gets better, fraudsters are constantly coming up with new ways to deceive us, whether it's through fake emails, deceptive phone calls, or even in-person cons. But while many scams are designed to look legitimate, there are some obvious telltale signs that can help you spot a scam a mile off. Remember, knowing how to ID a scam isn't just about protecting your money, it's about protecting your personal information and your peace of mind and even your future. So scams often rely on emotional manipulation, right? Combined with a sense of urgency to trick you into acting without thinking. Now, many people feel overwhelmed or confused when confronted with what seems to be like an urgent situation. For instance, you might receive a phone call claiming to be from your bank warning you of a security breach, asking for your account details immediately. Or you might get an email promising a huge reward for a once-in-a-lifetime investment, but only if you act quickly. Now, the problem is scammers know exactly how to push your buttons. They create panic, they play on your emotions, and they use high-pressure tactics to force a quick decision. This sense of urgency is one of the most common traits of a scam. Remember, if someone is rushing you to make a decision, that's a major red flag. Another challenge is that scams can be highly sophisticated, so they can often mimic official logos and language and even email addresses that look almost identical to those of those reputable companies. Now, in all honesty, the best scammers are professionals who spend a lot of time perfecting their pitch, but despite all their tricks, there are still a few common elements that every scam has in common, and that's what I'm going to help you spot today. So let's take a look at the most obvious signs that you might be dealing with a scam. Take a pen right now and write these 7 questions down as a checklist and keep them somewhere where you can always access them. Once you have these down, it should only take a matter of minutes to be able to determine if something is a scam or if it is legit. Number 1 is their unsolicited contact. So if you receive an unexpected call, email or message, especially one that asks for personal or financial information, it should immediately raise your suspicions. Legitimate organizations rarely contact you out of the blue without prior notice or some valid reason. Number 2 is their urgency and pressure tactics. As I mentioned earlier, scammers create a false sense of urgency. They might tell you that an offer is only available for a limited time, or that immediate action is required to prevent something terrible, like your bank account being frozen. Always take a step back and think before you act. Number 3, has there been a request for personal information? Be wary of any communication that asks for sensitive information, such as bank details, passwords, national insurance numbers. Legitimate companies will never ask you to provide this information unsolicited. Number 4, have you identified poor grammar and spelling mistakes? This might sound minor, but it's often a really easy way of identifying legit from a scam. While not every poorly written message is a scam, many fraudulent communications are riddled with spelling errors and awkward phrasing. It's often a sign that the message wasn't produced by a professional organization. Number 5, does it sound too good to be true. So look, if something sounds too good to be true, like a massive cash prize or an incredibly lucrative job offer, it probably is. Scammers prey on our hopes and our dreams, so if an offer seems unusually generous, mark it as a red flag and carry on through the list that I'm giving you. The sixth and penultimate question then, are there any ambiguities or inconsistencies? Now, a scammer may avoid giving you clear answers on things or may change the details of their story when questioned. So if the information you're given is inconsistent or unclear, that's a major warning sign. Professional companies follow strict policy and procedure with the information they give and very rarely give vague or inconsistent information. If this is a romantic scam, such as a potential catfish, this question can help reveal the truth. And finally, number 7, have you checked if the email address or website link is verified? This is, in my opinion, always one of the easiest ways to tell scammers. Scammers often try to mimic official websites and logos to look legit. Always double check the email address or the website URL. Scammers often use addresses that mimic legitimate ones, but there will always be a small error or strange domain name that doesn't match the official website of the company. Okay, so with that out of the way, you now know, and I've hopefully written down my 7 essential questions to ask yourself and the trademark sign to identify if something is a scam. But aside from this, it's essential in our final part of this video to look at the examples of most common scams in order for me to give you some specific tips on each. So the first type of scam we're going to look at is online scams and what to look for. Now, one common online scam involves phishing emails. For example, you might receive an email that looks like it's from your bank, complete with a logo and a professional formatting. Now, the email may warn you that your account has been compromised, that you need to click a link to secure it. However, when you hover over the link, you'll notice it leads you to an unfamiliar website, right? So this is a classic case of phishing. Scammers use this tactic all the time to steal your login details and other personal information. Now, as for the prevention, do the 7-question tactic I taught you earlier and make an informed decision. Next, you have phone scams. Phone scams are another widespread issue. You might get a phone call from someone claiming to be from HM Revenue and Customs, for example, stating that you owe back taxes and that immediate payment is required to avoid arrest. The caller might be using intimidating and urgent language and insist that you transfer money immediately. In reality, HMRC and people like that will never contact you by phone in this manner, nor will your bank, nor any major legitimate organization. And they'll always provide official correspondence through the post as well. Now, as for prevention then of telephone scams, number 1, do the 7-question tactic that I talked about before. Number 2, ask yourself, is this contact unsolicited with no prior warning? As I mentioned before, big red flag. And number 3, are you sensing high pressure tactics in this person's words on the phone to you? Are they putting great urgency on you? If so, major red flag. And number 4, are they demanding any immediate payments from you? Again, huge red flag. And then finally, of course, there are in-person scams, which, believe me, can be the most destructive. In-person scams can be really tricky as they often involve face-to-face interactions. For example, someone approaching you with an extremely convincing or emotional story, perhaps to tell you to invest in a surefire business opportunity. They might promise really high returns and use really persuasive language to convince you to invest immediately, only to find out it was all fabricated later on and you've lost all your money. But again, the key takeaway is that no matter how a scam is presented, whether online or by phone or in person, there are always common elements that you can use to identify them. That's what I'm trying to explain to you today. So make sure to use the same preventative action as I've just explained. Now, another example of an in-person scam is the romance scam. Now, if this doesn't apply to you, then feel free to skip. But if you are dating or if you're intending on dating anytime soon, look, we've seen the catastrophic effects of catfishing and money solicitation on the television on Netflix. There are so many of these shows out now where we can see the catastrophic effect it has on people's lives. And we know that people use fake personas to seduce people into relationships into giving them what they want. Scammers create these profiles on dating sites or social media. Now, look, guys, if you haven't noticed this already, all these examples, they show that while scams can vary widely in their approach, the underlying patterns remain the same. Urgency, lack of transparency, requests for sensitive information or money. Get yourself familiar with these red flags and 7 questions that I've taught you about and learn them for life. They will keep you and your loved ones safe. Now, that concludes the video then, but guys, look, I want to hear from you on this topic. I want to hear your experiences with scammers and the advice that you've learned from the experience or from other people's experiences. How did you deal with it and what action did you take? Let me know any future topics you'd like me to explain. And guys, as always, if you've liked or learned anything of value, maybe subscribe to the channel. I put countless hours into making these videos and your support means the world to me.